Well, how about that? Thank you for being here. As Greg said, I think a lot about trust in my work at NAR. We're all about, we don't sell homes, right? Our members do that. We help really connect with consumers, help them thinking about how can a realtor be a really trusted advisor in their work. But as we were getting ready for this conversation, I sort of realized that in my career I've never actually sold anything. I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I've actually been working on trust for 20 years. So just to give you all a little introduction, this guy obviously needs no introduction, but long time ago I was the co-founder and first CMO of Hinge, the dating app. Back when it was in its earliest days, Hinge launched around the same time as Tinder did, where there was not a lot of trust in dating on a phone. It's hard to believe now, right? But that was a new thing back in 2011, 12, 13, we started that. I worked at Politico for a long time after that, launching a bunch of different businesses for them. Trust in news, trust in politics, both pretty famously non-existent for a lot of people, right? And then most recently, as we were talking about, I ran policy marketing at Google during the early AI days, and building trust in something that can be inherently untrustworthy was something I thought a lot about. So really excited for this conversation with you. So we were talking earlier. I wanted to pick up on something that you said, which is that the role of trust, and I guess the importance of trust in our lives and the decisions that we make, can ebb and flow depending on the context we're living in, depending on the culture we're living in, depending on the society, the economy. Tell everybody how you think about that and what kind of trust moment you think we're in right now.
Well, if you look across any number of encounters that individuals have with institutions or situations, the salience of trust changes according to sort of where you are on a continuum. To give you an example, if I'm a 25-year-old male, my relationship with the healthcare profession in 95% of the cases is really just transactional, right? But if I'm a 65-year-old who's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, it changes dramatically. So trust, you can ask me whether I trust my doctor and I'm 25, and I don't think the answer matters. It really matters when you're 65. Or right now, the attitude of people towards institutions like banks is going to be very different in an upmarket than in the aftermath of a market correction. There are moments in our lives when we suddenly start to think about, oh my goodness, my financial well-being is tied up with an institution and a set of relationships with people, and when the Dow goes up 100 points a day, I don't have to think about that. But when all of a sudden those waters get very choppy, I do. So we need to sort of keep that in mind. Thought a lot about law enforcement, for example, and one of the fascinating things about our relationship in the United States to the police is that we seem to trust the police less the more crime falls, which makes no sense.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because once the police are less and less salient, we're not investing any time and attention. There's two things that are going on. One is that we don't have the necessity of investing a lot of our emotional energy in our relationship with the police department if they don't matter, if there's so little crime in our community that we're untouched by it. And the second would be that a bigger point, that maybe trust is uncorrelated with performance. Mm-hmm. That's not where it comes from. So it's not related to the level of quality of police work. It's related to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about police especially, because it's a great example of you've got the institution and then you have the individual. One thing I was struck by looking at the programming and the speakers and sort of everything going on this week is there's huge creator presence, right? I think easily bigger than it's just ever been before. And a lot of brands working with more creators, courting more creators, right? Both kind of earned and paid relationships. And if I'm to try to extract something from that, I feel like there might be two things going on there, right? One is these brands want to tap into the trust that those individuals have with their communities. And two is probably a skepticism or a concern that those institutions, those brands, their own trust, A, has limits, or B, is waning, but if they can draft off of and kind of bring in, getting into a little bit of that kind of personal recommendation, word of mouth shine and halo that an influencer can bring them. And it just got me thinking about this. Like, how do you think about that sort of separation in terms of institutional trust versus individual trust, and maybe things like this week where those two things start to collide?
Yeah. I think probably the safest thing to say is that the meaning of trust when it is embedded in an individual is very different from the meaning of trust when it's embedded in an institution. But we can't be talking about the same thing, because the relation. If you ask Americans, for example, are they happy with the healthcare system? They overwhelmingly say they aren't. But if you say to them, "Are you happy with your doctor?" they overwhelmingly say they are. So that is a paradox unless you say to yourself, "Oh, they're talking about two different things here." No. And maybe the determinants of both of those relationships are different. And one is a relatively stable thing and one is not a stable thing. What if I move? What if my doctor retires? What if my doctor screws up? What if, one is the kind of quote unquote what we call trust in an individual is something that's, to my mind, a lot shallower than the kind of trust that would be inherent in a relationship with an institution or a profession or I think I'm much more interested in the institutional form.
And shallower, why? Like, is it easier to build trust as an individual? Is there a clearer path to building trust, kind of person to person, professional to client, than there is in terms of like really trusting an institution?
I don't think people talk about influencers, for example, and that influencers have the trust of their following. I don't think they do. I think we find them interesting, provocative, amusing. I think we also find it very easy to switch to someone else when it's convenient or when the mood strikes us. That's not what, unless trust has some element of permanence to it, it's not, the word means nothing, right? And I think by definition, a lot of what we're talking about when we talk about this kind of digital thing, influence thing, is something fleeting, right? It emerged very quickly out of the ether, and I think that suggests it's not, it's not going to be, it's not a church, right?
Totally.
You think about people place their trusts in churches over the course of hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? It's a completely different kind of relationship.
Totally. Well, and I think something that your fleeting point is really interesting. I think there's a potential to maybe conflate trust with, you want another pillow?
I'm a lot, when you're as small as I am, you need some extra help.
Well, and when you're as big as I am, you do too, so it works out. But it seems like it could be easy to confuse trust and expertise, or trust and some form of influence, right? Like I could believe I spend a lot of time on the internet, as one is wont to do, and I feel like I follow a lot of influencers who are experts in different things, who I look to, for their expertise on good restaurants in the south of France. But there's, like you said, there's no like deep underlying trust there. Is that something that people confuse, that there might be, you might trust somebody or at least respect somebody or believe in someone because of some level of expertise?
This goes back to what I was
deeper trust happening there?
saying, that I'm not convinced that. I think one of the mistakes we make with trust is we do think that it's closely allied with performance. That is to say, it's something that is earned through the successful application and expression of expertise. And that's the part that I can't see any evidence of that. Because like I gave the example of police, but there's a million examples of institutions that have seen their trust levels fall as their contributions to the world have dramatically increased. I mean, the least trusted American industry is pharma. Makes no sense. That's the craziest. I can't think of a more bananas position than that. Americans trust the oil and gas industry more than they trust pharma, which is uncategorically insane.
Shout out to all our pharma and energy marketers in the audience.
one person is pumping gas out of the ground, and the other person is saving your life. Who do you like? So if it was just about your contributions to humanity, Pharma would be number one. To me, so it has to be about something else. If it was just about keeping us safe, we would all love the police. If it was, Americans hate Congress. Well, it's one of the most functional democracies ever created, and we still hate it. So, there's something else going on here that we're not.
Well, and is part of that something else, some form of like empathy, I guess? Because I feel like if I'm to think about the things that all those things might have in common, it seems like a level of out of touch or like a disconnect, right? Like if the frustration with pharma is around cost and profits, there might be some disconnect. This industry doesn't care about me; they care about themselves, right? Same thing with police, maybe same thing with government in some sense. They are looking out for themselves, not looking out for me. Like it seems like there's a role that empathy can play, both institutionally and individually, in building trust.
It's about the foundation of trust is some degree of shared values, of an understanding that the other party cares about you as a person, understands who you are, is committed to you outside of some kind of transactional relationship. In your world, why does the realtor matter? If it was just about the person who can find you the best possible house as quickly as you can, there is no reason not to use some kind of algorithm or whatever. But if it's someone who manages you through one of the most emotionally, psychologically, and financially important process, I was going to say transaction. It's not a transaction. No. It's like a
harrowing process.
It's a life-altering, changing, defining process. It has implications for where your kids go to school, the friends you make, the places you shop, I could go on. Like, if you need someone who understands you to help you through that, that's where the trust comes from.
Absolutely.
And, so it's that we get so hung up on this or misled by this notion that I can perform my way to trustworthiness. Yeah. And I think that's a mistake.
It's a really interesting point. It's funny, you made me think of my experience with my own realtor, where that trust was really forged in a series of moments. Like if I look back on when I first bought a condo when I was younger with our realtor, who has still been our realtor with our family home now, there was trust forged in multiple moments in that relationship. There was curveballs. There was like a weird deed type of claim on the house. It's like, does this developer not own this land? Am I going to get sued or kicked out? Helped us with a property lawyer, helped navigate that, got it all cleared out. We went through something similar. We had owned the house for 3 weeks, came back, kitchen was flooded. The developer had forgotten to take the test balloon out of the pipe. Harrowing. He had Serpro in there, immediately connected us with another lawyer who got it all straightened out, got it all paid for. So there was like a month period where I will never work with another realtor again anywhere. Like I'm almost scared to transact in real estate without Daniel Hyder in Washington D.C. Shout out by my side, because there has been there have been so many pitfalls that he has helped me avoid. So these moments that weren't performance based, because it actually wasn't at all about the money, right? It wasn't like, oh, Danny saved me $50,000 on the down payment or whatever. Like it wasn't about that at all. It were these moments of just showing up for someone. And I guess maybe you want to use that to segue into my next question for you, which is let's think about building trust. Because we've talked about sort of the status, we've talked about maybe some of the ingredients, but I guess both for institutions and for individuals. Maybe I'll start on the individual side. What do you think of those ingredients or steps of building trust? If there was somebody in the audience, right, or somebody you met this week, and you were like, I want that person by the end of this engagement to really trust me. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? What do you when you think about the sort of ingredients in building trust? What lives in there?
That scenario you just described is impossible because the element of time is so crucial here. So I sort of feel like in order to win kind of trusted status, you have to see the person you're interacting with through an entire life cycle. The thing I started out saying, that trust looks different the importance of trust looks different in an up market than a down market.
Yep.
Or your relationship to your doctor is a lot different at 25 than it is at 65. That this is by definition something that cannot be a bond of this significance and permanence is by definition something that cannot be established overnight. You got to see me through this before, or if, like with healthcare, you have a steadily escalating need and demand for healthcare services, you've got to see me through some portion of that trajectory in order to get to a position of true trustedness. I've been doing this project with this ICU doctor, where I've just been. He runs an ICU at a big hospital, and he's convinced me that the ICU is the most interesting place in the hospital. And he looks down.
Success of shows like The Pit, right?
No, hold on. That's the ER.
Okay, my bad.
He has disdain for the ER. If you're an ICU guy, you look at the ER guys and you say they're just traffic cops. The
ICU beef. I did not know about the ICU ER beef.
Oh my God, it's huge beef. They're like, when someone with a lot of problems comes into the ER, you know what they do? They ship him to the ICU. So he's like, anyway.
Noted.
Separate. So this guy I was talking to him about. I've spent hours and hours with this guy. I was talking to him about, well, how would AI change your life? And he goes, not really at all. And I was like, why? He goes, well, you think that what I'm doing is going around and making really clever diagnoses. And he's like, that's actually not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is my day is spent talking to people. It's all, I have the sickest people in the hospital are in my ward, and their families are there. They have excruciatingly difficult decisions to make. The clock is running on, the meter's running. Like, each person is costing the hospital and the insurers hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's like we have to make really thoughtful, hard decisions. And very often the person whose fate is on the line is unresponsive. They're unconscious.
Right.
He's like, that's my world. It's just about, can I establish trust with a family or a patient who I maybe knew before? In some cases, treating them, they've been through there before. Sometimes it's something I've got to summon in a very short period of time.
Well, I was about to say, talk about a moment where you need to summon trust in an instant. That ICU doctor has a bigger challenge.
And he told me this really interesting thing about, during COVID, what happened was the families couldn't come into the ICU, right? And for 2 weeks, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is no more of these. And then after 2 weeks, he realized, no, this is a disaster. Because I can't do my job anymore, right? My job is those kinds of conversations, and that was that really made me understand something about how specific and essential that kind of relationship is in certain contexts.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to pick up on something you mentioned there, which is the role of trust and expertise and human trust in this AI moment. And I have a theory that I want to throw out there and see what you think about. But I feel like for a long time, experts played many roles, but one of them was sort of gatekeepers of information, right? Like the stockbroker understood the market, the realtor knew more about the inventory, the lawyer knew the law, the doctor, like house style, right? Like the doctor knew all the exotic diagnoses. But in all of these areas of expertise now, that's been so democratized, right? You can self-diagnose, you can learn anything about the market, you can learn anything about any law text at your fingertips with AI. It seems like, as you mentioned, one, that bedside manner, that advice, that counsel, so much more important now. But two, I feel like there's an intuition level there as well, which is that with all the information in the world, you might still not make the decision that your doctor would, or I might not make the decision that my realtor would, or whatever it is. How do you think about that? Is there some sort of inversion of the core of expertise that's happening right now with so much information being at people's fingertips?
Yeah. So, there's a kind of homeostasis here between information and judgment, and that when the informational load is low, the demand of judgment is low, right? So if it's 1900 and you have a brain tumor, when we know very little about your tumor, and we can also do very little about it, right?
Go to the barber, right? He might hack open your skull.
It's kind of, but as our knowledge of what's wrong with you grows, the level of judgment that's necessary to kind of figure out what to do also needs to grow. And so AI is just AI is a way of handling the informational load and taking a little bit of the load off the judgment side, but it's not replacing it, because the problem is now like this high. Now we got 50 choices, not 3. So, AI helps us with that, but it can't get us all the way to 50. Like, the problem just gets more deeper and more complex as the kind of informational resources improve.
Well, there seems like there's a real risk there too. I mean, it's like sort of like the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Like you reach this tipping point, no pun intended, of information, and you think you're an expert even when you're not. You've just literally talked to Gemini or ChatGPT about something. It seems like there's a real risk of that, like, judgment impairment of saying, oh, I have more information than I used to. I can do this, when in fact, like, you can't. Like, you should not try to replace the ICU doctor in your own ChatGPT diagnosis. Like it seems like there's almost like a inflated self-trust that comes with more of that information.
I mean, we're forgetting that in these kind of crucial things, buying a house, getting health care, dealing with end-of-life decisions or what have you, our human happiness and satisfaction and well-being and peace of mind does not come from entirely or exclusively from the quality of from the kind of the performance of the professional we're interacting with, right? We need so much more as human beings. My mom, who is 94 years old, does not demand the world's greatest healthcare. What she wants is the attention of her doctor. She understands that at 94, there's a limit to what can be done by. What she really wants is just someone who will listen to her and understand her and give her some peace of mind when she has another ache and pain, right? That's actually true of an astonishing number of our interactions. Most of our interactions with police officers are not about solving the murder of the neighbor next door. They're about someone giving us peace of mind in a moment of stress.
Yeah.
I was traveling with my family. We hit a deer at 65 miles an hour on the interstate.
Wow.
With 2 small children in car seats. It was terrifying.
Everybody okay?
Everyone's okay. Whole front end of the car totaled. Police officer is there within 2 minutes. Was the kindest, most thoughtful, most patient, most understanding. And I was like, that's what we wanted, right? In that moment. That's what we needed. And that's what he could give us. And that's the thing that can never be replaced by any kind of other, excuse me. But I think that's sort of true of a surprising number of the encounters we have with
Absolutely. Well, and that I feel like we don't need to rabbit hole on this, but that's why I feel like it's so concerning about seeing folks using AI tools as companions, as therapists, as sort of life coaches.
Not going to end well.
Right, because you're leaning on these, trying to feel like you have that human connection with something like this, but you obviously don't. I want to flip this a little bit, and because I think as you were talking about these really interesting positive interactions with a policeman, a doctor, right, with any of these trusted forces in one's life, I was thinking about when trust breaks, right? And it's obviously clearer, I think, with a lot of the brands and clients that folks here work with when there's a scandal, a crime, right? The clear institutional moments of breaking trust. How do you think about both individually and institutionally when that trust really breaks? And I guess what's maybe the right and the wrong way to think about rebuilding trust after those moments of trust kind of exploding and fading?
Well, I think you have to know, it has to be clear throughout any kind of period of recovery what you stand for. So I need to have some kind of, if you think about I've written a lot and done a lot of podcasts on higher education, and we've seen a kind of erosion of trust in, particularly at the kind of elite level in higher education, and parents feeling that they're being manipulated, students feeling they're not getting. We can go on and on and on about why that is, and fundamentally though, what's happening is that at no point, not no point, but there are a number of institutions that have the problem that they cannot articulate why they're doing what they stand for, what contribution they're making to the students who come through their doors. And so when they reach a crisis moment, they have there's nothing for them to fall back on. They can't recover from, you can recover from a bad event when you know what you're getting back to. Well, they don't know what they're getting back to, right? If you're West Point, you can survive a scandal because we know what West Point stands for. Right?
You have that institutional
if you're
rock
MIT,
solid.
we know what MIT stands for. Like we know what I live right near Bard College. We know what Bard College is. Like very hard to it's like smoking a lot of pot.
I was about to ask you for your definition of what Bard College is, but go ahead.
A school that takes the arts very, very seriously. Yep. That's chosen to occupy a space outside of the kind of I don't want to use the word capitalist system, but it's like it's anti-establishment, right? Proudly, defiantly so. They can endure all kinds of setbacks because they know where they are, and I think that's we got tested as a country during COVID, and we had trouble because the medical establishment in particular could not articulate what their role was in addressing the pandemic. They kept on thinking, I can give you something that will save your life, and that was enough.
Right.
And they forgot, no, they were guardians of our well-being, and they couldn't speak that language.
Right. There's a disconnect there between the values, the actions, and maybe the communication of both of those. The higher education one, I wanted to mention something that you had on one of your conversations about higher ed. And the Bowdoin grads in my family are gonna hate this that I brought it up, but it was such an interesting example because what you're talking about, I think part of it was values and actions, right? When your actions betray some sort of disconnect from your values that people have bought into, right? That creates a moment of a break in trust. I thought your Vassar versus Bowdoin example was so interesting. I might butcher this, so I want you to take it. But it's basically you have two very similar, high-performing, highly selective schools. One in Bowdoin that has world-class food, but fewer scholarships, fewer Pell Grants, fewer low-income students. One in Vassar that has pretty awful food, but supporting a lot more of those kinds of students. Am I remembering that correctly? Mm-hmm. That was fascinating to think about that, like the completeness of the value system that results in how do you end up in a place where you make a decision? I want to spend a lot. I mean, obviously, it's not a zero-sum decision necessarily, but I want to spend a lot of money on world-class catering, and maybe that trickles down to having fewer scholarships of some kind.
Vassar is in a kind of hilariously negative way, signaling what they care about, right? And saying to your students, I remember there was a moment when I was interviewing the CFO of Vassar, and he said to me, if you come to Vassar looking for good food in the cafeteria, you've come to the wrong place. That's not who we are. But that phrase, that's not who we are. He knew who they were, right? And even as he was expressing it in terms of what they couldn't do, food's shitty here. Deal with it. We care about other stuff. And to tell that to an 18-year-old is a really, really, really useful thing, right? Get your priorities in order. You're not coming to school to eat lobster every night. There are other bigger things in the world you should be worried about. That was beautiful to me. And I feel like that's a school that could endure and will endure all sorts of shocks.
Well, I think that's true personally too, right? I feel like I can think of people in my life who I think will probably have strong values, and one of the things I think of is when they say, I am not this, right? I am not good at that. I am not that kind of person. Don't ask me for this kind of advice or this kind of help. You said, that starts to show you.
I tell this to my wife every day
are.
about why I can't be relied on to remember even the smallest. Most true.
How does that go?
It doesn't always work with her, but I take your larger point that Maybe it works in.
No, but drawing those lines, right? It's like establishing where your value systems are, where your areas of expertise are,
Yeah.
and where they aren't. We've just got a couple minutes left. I want to do a little lightning round with you.
All right.
Few quick questions. Let's go 2-3 bullets, couple words. What is the most underrated builder of trust?
Underrated builder of trust. Probably kids sports coaches
Interesting.
who I think do an enormous service to the development of kids in teaching them about what it means to be part of a team and to be disciplined and we as parents are required and don't always do a good job of it of placing enormous amount of trust in them.
Absolutely.
Development, in the kind of moral development of our children.
That's really interesting. I'm going to ask you that question a different way, too, because it got me thinking. In terms of a specific action or behavior, does an underrated sort of action or behavior that can build trust come to mind for you? Something that one could do to build that trust that's underrated.
Well, it's about their relationship to the mediocre athlete. It's really easy to coach talented athletes, and a lot more important and valuable and difficult to coach mediocre ones. So it's the relation. If your kid's bad at the sport, that's what I'm interested in. Is whether that kid can develop a real relationship with the coach in a field in which your child is inept.
Definitely. What destroys trust the fastest?
The fastest. I suppose a core betrayal as opposed to a. So we were talking earlier about, that what builds trust is a clear definition of who you are and a definition of what you are not. So when you fail in the things that you said that you weren't good at, that's fine. But when you betray people in the things that in those few things that you said you stood for, that's a problem. I mean, not to politicize this, but it's why Trump gets away with so much stuff. Because he said he was an asshole.
Right.
So, so when he's an asshole, it's like, fine, he's not betraying anything.
Right.
Bill Clinton, we knew he was a ladies' man. Like, you can't shake our trust in him by saying, he had an affair. Well, of course he had an affair. He's had tons of affairs. And he's always said that's what he does.
Yeah.
But if Bill Clinton is dumb about policy, or if, I don't know what a Trump betrayal would be at this point. But what is his core competency again? I've forgotten.
The deals. Well, the Democrats are dealing with that right now in Maine, in my home state of Maine, with Graham Plattner, right? I mean, you've got someone who's gone through lots of different, very Trump-level indiscretions in the past, but it's a pearl-clutching moment for a lot of Democrats, not just par for the course of modern politics. We talked a little bit about doctors, about policemen, especially the policemen after the deer incident. What institution or profession has earned your personal trust, and why?
Well, I come from a family, very religious family, and there's huge numbers of preachers and clergy, and I feel like those people have earned people who have devoted. My brother's best friend and a very good friend of mine is a guy who spent his whole career building churches, and if he made more than $60,000 in a given year over the course of his entire life, I'd be stunned. His entire life was devoted to building institutions and communities that served people's spiritual and emotional needs. I don't know how you can look at him and not place an enormous amount of. It was never ever about him.
Well, it's interesting to think about devotion being that values in extended discipline practice, really building that. Last question for you, because I know we're a couple minutes over. I know folks probably got rosé to drink. 5 years from now, more AI. Who knows what markets are doing? Who knows what Trump's doing? What does trust look like into these next 5 years?
Well, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough predict the future. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like the thing about, there are two parallel tracks happening at any given time. There's the evolution of the technology, which is always rapid and always gets rapider, more rapid. And then there is the evolution of our understanding of the technology, which always takes longer than we think. And this is I can go back 200 years. You know, they invent the cotton gin during the Industrial Revolution, and then they spend, or a better example would be the steam engine. They invent the steam engine, and it takes them like 75 years, not just to perfect it, but to figure out what it's for, right? Or like how long, my favorite example is when the VCR was invented, Jack Valenti, the head of the Motion Picture Association, went to Hollywood and asked that Congress ban it. This is a technology that in its various forms would go on to make his industry not just billions of dollars, but tens, if not
hundreds of billions.
Hundreds,
Totally.
would transform the nature of storytelling, and when they got it, when it was given to them on a silver platter by the Japanese, they were like, oh my God, it's over for us. They had no understanding. The smartest people in that world I did an interview with the head of IBM who worked on Wi-Fi. It was when he was a junior guy. He was one of the guys behind the invention of Wi-Fi. And so he's like a techie guy from India, comes to America, works on Wi-Fi. This is like, how many years ago? And his first thought is, oh my God, this is how we can deliver movies. So they go to Hollywood, a little team from IBM goes to Hollywood in whatever year, 19, whatever. And they go, guys, this is fantastic for you. You're going to deliver your movies this way. Nobody was, not even not interested. They were like, what are you doing here? And they went back, and then everyone thought that what Wi-Fi was for communications inside big warehouses. It's like we take
Slightly smaller business than streaming today.
My point is we take forever to figure this stuff out. So 5 years from now, it's going to be the same. The technology will be way ahead, but we're still going to be having the same conversations. It takes us forever to figure out, the social side of these technological issues.
And we'll probably still be seeking that human judgment, that bedside manner, that kind of guiding hand that we all need. Guys, we've already kept you for a few extra minutes. Malcolm, thank you so much for being here. Everybody, give it up for Malcolm Gladwell.